Welcome to American Education FM, everybody. I'm Dr. Sean Brooks. Hi, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving week. I'm going to start here. There's just going to be 2 episodes this week, Monday and Wednesday. I've got 2 Substacks out right now that I put together here over the last weekend. One, of course, having to do with the fraudulent use of testing analysis and testing data in American K12 schools and how the entire thing has been proven to be fraudulent. That, again, value-added materials or value-added methods, so to speak, when it comes to trying to analyze test data and staring at computers, and by default that will somehow improve test scores or student achievement, of course, is an entire lie. And that right there is one of the larger problems with the entire business, is that the business of education implements things that have already been proven to be ineffective and non-existent and don't work and whatever other terms you want to use. And as I say in the article, again, having anybody in the education business stare at test scores is basically, again, as useful as staring at paint and trying to, again, speed up the process of having it dry, and somehow that has an impact on someone else in a foreign country. It has zero impact. Again, the American education business does not read research. They do not engage in qualitative reasoning and analysis, let alone quantitative reasoning and analysis. They just don't do it. They simply do what they are told by people that they've never ever met before, and then they implement practices without ever questioning or even looking into the past validity of those practices. If people in the education business knew this, they'd throw themselves off a cliff, because the amount of time that they are wasting is monumental. And I'm going to get into, again, more specific examples as to why, of course, the business is always collapsing. I might even play a little bit of audio from the most recent board meeting that transpired in the town where I live, because, again, it is so painful to watch these morons talk, because they know not what they say. Again, you can't even make up this level of stupidity. It's too painful. So I'll get to that a little bit later, but right now I want to start with this. Again, I find, well, there were basically 2 moves that got made here earlier this week regarding Donald Trump, and a lot of the kayfabe that's going on, and a lot of the moves that are being made here. And I would encourage people, again, to bounce over to Rumble if you're interested, and watch the D-Class guys over there on News Treason's channel, and Rambo and Friends, and that crew. Again, they go through a lot of information, and they break a lot of things down. And again, there's a lot of different moves being made, but it's not to say, again, that every single thing or every single move that's being made is necessarily a good thing. There's still plenty of bad actors and deep state players, again, within government. There's always going to be, which is remarkably unfortunate. But again, I'll get into even some other examples toward the end regarding that. But even so, you had, of course, the new mayor of New York in the Oval Office, and that was an interesting exchange between he and the president. Again, I understand that there are people that are saying that he's an actor, so to speak, that this Mamdani guy, again, is playing a particular role. I don't believe that. I think that he is no good, and that gets to be sort of a face value and even multidimensional way of looking at things. But again, I think time is going to tell with him regarding what specifically happens. We know that people are reactionary, and as I've said before, you already have a great deal of people leaving New York City for the simple reason that he allegedly won, assuming that, again, the actual election was legit. And when you, again, break down the number of people who voted for him and the kinds of people who voted for him, as it turns out, it's young women. And again, that's a problem, because they're not thinking. That's not a knock on young women or women in general. It's just they're not thinking, and they live, again, in that communist hub of that area geographically. And they see a young person come along, or a younger person come along, and they believe that it's all organic. That, oh, look, he's become mayor. That means I can too. And if I support him, then somehow he'll support me and XYZ. That's just not the way that it works. Again, these are not well-read, well-researched individuals. They don't take the time to actually read a book, let alone look back in history and learn anything. They, again, are hive mind individuals, and that's regardless of the sex of the person. Again, if people are just talking in echo chambers all day long, it's never going to work out for them. And of course, they're going to vote just the way that an echo chamber votes. So anyway, I don't know what's going to happen with him necessarily. I think everybody's just going to have to kind of keep an eye on it. But there's already plenty of reactionary moves that are taking place that are not working in his favor. I'll just kind of leave it at that. Regarding Marjorie Taylor Greene and her stepping down from Congress, this too is interesting timing. And as I've said before, and I think this is another example of it, that we don't have to know all of the ins and outs of everything that's going on. We just don't. And it's 100% fine if we don't. We get to be, it's not indecisive, it's we get to be non-committal to an extent. Again, we can use the scientific method and we can run through the scientific method regarding particular individuals in XYZ. And if you weigh it on a scale, you'd have to ask yourself this: is Marjorie Taylor Greene really the worst of the worst in the way that she's being portrayed by Donald Trump, or was being portrayed at that moment by Donald Trump, to then only have him come back around and say, well, she's not terrible. You know, we disagree on some things and XYZ and blah, blah, blah. I mean, which is it? Because again, she was one of the largest cheerleaders for him, certainly during his first administration and during the pause when he wasn't formally in office, although the military was in charge, and even, of course, this first 8 months or so, 9 months, 10 months of his current administration. As I've said before regarding a number of different issues, and again, I've used fake school shootings as a perfect example, you can always catch whether or not a particular thing is legit or not, usually based on two separate things: policy and then human behavior. Because policy is written in stone by and large. Human behavior is an observational skill, and you can notice it with particular individuals, and then all of a sudden, if you snap your fingers and that behavior instantly changes, something is happening that is not organic. Something else is happening, again, that is not legit. It's either scripted or it's something else. I just find it hard to believe, given her support of him and his support of her for as long as it's been going on. And then, of course, you take into account on that same scale the reactionary responses, so to speak, from the typical players who claim to love Donald Trump, quote unquote, more than somebody else. And anytime there's some kind of a rift in the action, those individuals, again, step out of the shadows and do the same thing that they always do, which is bash the person who's leaving, who's being accused of something by Donald Trump, to then, of course, make it look like they support Donald Trump more than the individual who's just left or been criticized. I can't help but think of course, of an individual like Laura Loomer. Again, these people come out of the woodwork like always and go, see, I knew she wasn't MAGA. I knew she hated Donald Trump. She is a traitor because he said so, and blah, blah, blah. Well, look at, again, what Marjorie Taylor Greene has done and not done. She's gone toe-to-toe with congressmen and women on a number of committees. She was removed from all of her committees in her first term because, again, she was raising serious questions and she was bringing up serious subjects that the Speaker of the House at the time didn't want brought up. So they tried to silence her. She's been basically America First the entire time. She's gotten harder on the America First issues, which is a good thing because she's learning. She's even spoken about the Q drops, by and large. There's video evidence of that as well, which I have seen and heard. Even the Rambo and Friends guys bring it up. So again, it just doesn't equate. But again, it doesn't mean that we have to arrive at a particular conclusion one way or another. But again, when you weigh the scale, I think you're watching a script here. You're watching a play, and you're watching a player in the play complete the role that they were asked to complete. They did it successfully. They're going out on their own terms. There's no, again, wire fraud or money laundering or anything like that regarding anything that she's done that anybody can tell. There's accusations, but there's no proof. And again, she brought up a lot of serious subjects. She brought up Epstein files. And then, as the Rambo and Friends guys bring up, which is interesting, she makes the rounds right before she resigns on all of these so-called left-wing shows, The View, Bill Maher, and others. And she's telling their audiences that both sides of government do not have your best interests at heart. And of course, politicians don't either. So almost like, hey, snap out of it. I've been in Washington, you haven't. I've seen what goes on, you haven't, or maybe you have, but you're just in denial about it. And the fact is the left-right paradigm doesn't have anybody's real interests at heart, certainly not, of course, the quote-unquote rhinos and all the other names that get used. So again, I think personally, if you were to weigh that scale, I would say that she is hands down more positive than not. And I've bashed her on the show before because she hasn't gone hard enough in the paint on certain issues, and she certainly didn't a while back that I would have liked to have seen. Again, she would throw support for certain people and then not support others. Again, it was a bit odd, but the element too that you can't ignore is that not everybody wakes up at the same time. And not everybody wakes up on basically regarding the same issues at the exact same time either. So it's a constant process. And I think, again, she's either reached her limit or she's been told, hey, thanks for your service. We're moving in a separate direction. You played exactly the way that you were supposed to play your role. You did it perfectly. You brought people's attention to a great deal of subjects, and more people are now awake as a result. Not to mention, it shows, frankly, that she's in the minority when it comes to typical politicians in Washington because, again, she's America first. No foreign lobbying, no AIPAC money, never went to Israel, didn't kiss the ring, at least not to my knowledge. Didn't touch the wall and kiss the wall, didn't wear the small hat, all that nonsense. She never participated in any of that. She knows who the enemy is. And I would add this last piece too regarding her service, which again, it's an admirable service if I was, again, to basically summarize it or evaluate it by and large. I'd give her a B+, A-, somewhere in there. The fact is that there's only so long you can be in that environment, like a Washington, D.C., around those kinds of people, with AIPAC and Israeli flags everywhere, and you see all of this foreign interest and all this lobbying and all this crime, not to mention all of the committees that have taken place regarding child trafficking, human trafficking, rape, torture, murder, you name it, and have that not wear on you, in particular when you're around adults who don't seem to care about it or aren't moving fast enough on it. And again, Thomas Massey's kind of in the same boat, kind of the same thing. So again, if you were to weigh the scale, even at face value, without looking at it, deeper at all, again, I would give her a B+, A- without a doubt. Again, she said in her retirement speech, which I watched it was whatever it was, 10.5 minutes long, something like that. It goes by quick, but she, again, says there isn't 4D chess being played. There's no plan to save the country, XYZ. She's lying. But I think it's a purposeful lie, or it's purposeful misdirection. She's trying to get people motivated. She's trying to get people not to quit and again, be discouraged and be demoralized in the whole thing. She's just trying to get people to snap out of the left-right paradigm. There's more than enough ample proof that there are endless psychological operations taking place, and these operations are taking place, again, for a variety of reasons. Lots of hands in the cookie jar. Not saying that wouldn't be the case in any other situation, but it's also an ongoing military operation. And of course, deception is a part of war. So it's not like, again, she's going to come out and say in her retirement speech, don't worry, the good guys are in control. The military is gathering all kinds of evidence. They're going to put these people away in the future. Don't worry about it. What benefit comes from her saying that? Because it's that kind of thing that gets a lot of people, again, inactive and not paying attention to what goes on locally and not paying attention to what goes on within their state and so on and so on. certainly, again, at a national political level as well. So again, I think that her retirement speech there that she gave was fine. It was direct. In fact, I couldn't help but listen to it and think of a former congressman in the state of Ohio here, where I live, which was James Traficant. James Traficant, I remember him back when I was in school, both in high school and in college. And then, of course, I remember him calling out Israel consistently, even back then. And then, of course, he went to jail, and then he got out of jail, and then he ended up dying, or one of the two, died in or around jail. But again, they pinched him because, of course, he was calling out the real enemy. And he was openly, again, saying, look what's going on in Washington. Everybody has to sign on the dotted line when you get elected, and you have to take money. I mean, he was one of the first to openly bring it up on a consistent basis. And, of course, they ruined him. Famously, again, just ridiculous hair and a very interesting toupee at the exact same time. But, again, his personality was legit, and he was speaking the truth. I would put, again, a Marjorie Taylor Greene kind of in that same category. Thomas Massie, same thing. And I would say that Massie and Marjorie Taylor Greene are more outspoken than even the people that they say are their allies, like the Lauren Boeberts of the world and the Nancy Maces of the world. I think Nancy Mace is a poison. I think Lauren Boebert is a poison. These people take AIPAC money like nobody's business. They bend the knee to Israel like nobody's business. Can you talk about people taking advantage of the system and offering next to nothing? I would say it's those two, as opposed to, of course, a Thomas Massie or a Marjorie Taylor Greene. So either way, I'll leave it at that. I would just simply say again, when you weigh the scale, I don't think she's some kind of a deep state plant. I don't think that's the case. I don't think she's a fraud. I think, again, she ran a successful construction business apparently in Georgia. I have no reason to believe otherwise. I do know for a fact, again, that there was kind of a political talent agency that she was affiliated with. And I've seen pictures of her affiliated with that agency. I don't know if that's legit or not. But again, could be. Could be she took some money early on, again, from local individuals who, again, wanted her in Congress to represent the area of Georgia that she represents, which is, of course, northern Georgia. But even so, I mean, again, it seems a little more authentic and a little more organic. But there's an interesting movement taking place, which is interesting, which is, again, a great deal of people outside of Washington, D.C., made up of people who used to be in Washington, D.C. And those people know how things get done, and they know how things are run, and they know who's there, and they know, again, how the wheel spins. So, I don't know. Time will tell with all of this as to what they end up producing in the future, if they produce anything in the future. But I think it's time well served. I think, again, they helped move the needle to a great extent, and that's good enough for me. Okay. I want to mention this. This is kind of a little revisit from a previous subject that consistently gets brought up. And then I actually want to get into a little bit of Jeffrey Epstein stuff in just a minute, because this right here, too, is something that Marjorie Taylor Greene also paid a great deal of attention to and of course, is brought to the forefront. And you can actually take this particular website that's hit the airwaves here, so to speak, and you can pop it into an AI system and have it summarize particular emails. In fact, I'll do that now. It's just it's too interesting. So someone basically put together this website that does have emails in it to and from Jeffrey Epstein to a number of different individuals. This particular website is Jmail.world. It's that simple. The letter J, mail, MAIL.world. Anybody can get on it. And it shows approximately 22,000, well, let's see. Let me hit all contacts here real quick. 2,231 emails, basically, in total. Actually, my apologies. That's not, yes, that is true. There we go. 2,235-ish emails. On the left-hand side, basically, there's a group of people that you can click on, and you can see the emails that were sent to or from these people, of course, to or from Jeff Epstein as well. A Michael Wolff, a Larry Summers, Steve Bannon, Ken Starr, a Joy Ito, Ghislaine Maxwell, Noam Chomsky, Tom Pritzker, Alan Dershowitz, yes, Alan, and an Al Seckel. So what I did is, and again, anybody can do this. I just clicked on Larry Summers, for example, and then I tossed in the website, the web address, once you click on Larry Summers. And I highlighted the hyperlink, and then I tossed it into Grok, and I said, summarize these emails to and from Larry Summers and Jeffrey Epstein. And it takes a few seconds, and then it pops up basically a giant overview of all of the emails between them. And as you would expect, it's a great deal of emails, and it's also, of course, a great deal of email threads and numerous pages in the whole thing, dating back years to at least, I'd say, 2016, again, at the very least. But I tossed it again into Grok, and I just, again, asked it to summarize it, and it did. And it provides kind of a nice overview at the beginning here, but then it gets into some of the key emails and some of the discussions that they were having. It's kind of fascinating. I'll be honest with you. It shows interesting relationships. It shows interesting concerns and things that they had concerns about. And of course, Larry Summers was the former president of Harvard. So here's kind of an overview of just this particular thread, and then we'll get into our friend Alan Dershowitz, which of course I will be revisiting that famous segment we like to call Alan Dershowitz is an ass. So here we go. First of all, Larry Summers. It says the following: the Jmail.world archive released by the U.S. House Oversight Committee in November of 2025 contains over 26,000 emails from Jeffrey Epstein's Gmail account. Now, it doesn't say 26,000 on the actual Gmail page itself, but that's probably because there's endless email threads and multiple emails within, of course, a singular email. But either way, approximately 26,000. It goes on, it says, spanning his professional, personal, and illicit networks, Larry Summers, former Harvard president, U.S. Treasury Secretary and economist, features prominently in exchanges from 2013 to July 5th of 2019, months before Epstein's arrest on federal sex trafficking charges. The emails reveal a close, ongoing, confidant relationship with Summers seeking Epstein's advice on philanthropy, including donations to projects tied to Summers' wife, Elisa New. Politics, disdain for Trump, basically, as an example, and sensitive personal matters, particularly Summers' clandestine romantic pursuit of a younger woman he described as a mentee, reportedly economist Kiyu Jin. Says that their contact persisted more than a decade after Epstein's 2018 Florida plea deal for soliciting prostitution from a minor, including a 2005 honeymoon visit to Epstein's private island. Summers had since expressed deep regret, calling the association a major error in judgment, unquote, and has taken a leave from Harvard teaching and stepped back from public commitments amid the scandal. No emails implicate Summers in Epstein's crimes, but they highlight blurred professional personal boundaries and Epstein's role as a wingman, quote-unquote. Below is a chronological summary of key emails drawn from the archive. And there's some bullet points, and let me read through these. Again, rather interesting. Key emails, December 2005. It says, early island visit, pre-email context. Summers and his wife, Elisa New, visited Epstein's private island in the U.S. Virgin Islands as part of a honeymoon trip to St. John and Jamaica. This predates the archived emails, but marks an early social tie before Epstein's first legal troubles. Between 2013 and 2016, they talk about philanthropic advice and donations. Summers sought Epstein's guidance for fundraising for News Poetry Education Project at Harvard, his Asian squeeze. Epstein's foundations donated to the initiative, and the pair met about a dozen times, often for dinners. These exchanges underscore Epstein's influence in academic philanthropy, with Summers leveraging the connection for his wife's work. It goes on, it says October 27th, 2017, gender and admissions debate. This is an interesting one. Summers emailed Epstein venting about how a Harvard admissions case involving a woman with a criminal history, saying, quote, "I'm trying to figure out why the American elite think if you murder your baby by beating and abandonment, it must be irrelevant to your admission to Harvard." Contrasting it with career repercussions for, quote, "hitting on a few women 10 years ago," he added. Quote, "I observed that half of the IQ in the world was possessed by women without mentioning they are more than 51% of the population." It goes on and it says that Epstein replied supportively and that this reflects their shared provocative views on gender, intellect, and elite hypocrisy. Sounds like Summers wanted crazy women to be admitted to Harvard regardless of the circumstances. It goes on, it says, late November, December 2018, onset of romantic pursuit advice. Amid a conference, Summers confided in Epstein about his attraction to the woman, coded as peril in messages, noting her compliments on his outfit, commentary, and Epstein's insights into their dynamic. Summers wrote, quote, "Think for now I'm going nowhere with her except economics mentor," unquote. And later said, quote, "When I'm reflective, I think I'm dodging a bullet. Think right thing is to cut off contact. Suspect she will miss it. Problem is, I will too," unquote. He forwarded her email seeking paper feedback, musing it was probably appropriate to delay a response. Epstein encouraged, quote, "She's already beginning to sound needy. Nice," unquote. On December 22nd, Summers shared her thank you for supporting her and her father, a former Chinese Communist Party official, explaining his flattery in a meeting. Topics blend professional mentorship with romantic tension. Ooh. Again, Summers is Jewish and disgusting. It goes on here, March 16th, 2019, a rebuff and wingman role. Again, more of a relationship, basically. Let's see. Probability, banter, and long game strategy. In mid-June of 2019, Summers queried that Epstein on the odds of getting horizontal with peril, again, having sex with him, linking it to forecasting Trump's re-election. Epstein assured, quote, "She is doomed to be with you," unquote, and she is never ever going to find another Larry Summers, probably zero, unquote. Again, while Summers updated her on the workload and contacts, calling her gorgeous and admitting, quote, "I'm fucked," unquote. Exchanges mixed humor, strategy, and vulnerability. These people are degenerates. They're just emailing each other all their degeneracy all of the time. Here's basically the summary or the broader context as it wraps up. It says, quote, "The emails portray Epstein as a trusted sounding board for Summers on elite networking, intellectual debates, and intimate pursuits, despite Epstein's notoriety. Politics surfaced in anti-Trump rants and social event planning, while philanthropy tied into Harvard circles. It says the revelations have roiled Harvard, prompting Summers's indefinite teaching leave and withdraw from commitments, though he denies knowledge of Epstein's abuses." Of course he does. Of course he does. What's he going to do? Admit it? That he was talking with a known criminal? Give me a break. So speaking again of his associations, Jeffrey Epstein's, of course, there is always Alan Dershowitz, which of course now brings us to a little segment we like to call Alan Dershowitz is an Ass.
Legal minds may class, some think they're cutting edge, but to last with theories, wild and facts that sass. Alan Dershowitz is an assay. You argue loud, you argue fast. Sometimes your points just don't last. You stir the pot, you break the glass. Alan Dershowitz is an assay.
Okay, here's the deal. I'm gonna summarize this before I read it because it's not long. But here's how Alan is portrayed in these emails. Alan's a bitch. That's basically it. I hate to curse, but it's true. Allen is basically the kid who wants to be on the football team and has no athletic ability. You know, he wants to wear the Letterman's jacket and he's never played in a game. He's a leech, and they make fun of him all the time. Epstein criticizes him. Lots of other people do. And he's, again, criticized for liking Trump. He's criticized for this, that, and the other. And then, of course, Epstein leans on him for help. And then he helps him. And then they go back and forth. It's just, it's just a really whiny relationship, which is stereotypical. And I think everybody would sort of agree with that to some extent. So here's what it says. Again, it gets into... let's see, here we go. Alan Dershowitz, a former Harvard law professor and Epstein's former lawyer, appears in several emails, primarily from 2018 through 2019. The exchanges reveal a strained professional relationship marked by Epstein's private ridicule of Dershowitz's media persona and political commentary, despite Dershowitz's role in negotiating Epstein's controversial 2007 non-prosecution agreement in Florida. Dershowitz has publicly stated that their personal ties ended after that deal, though he occasionally provided legal advice afterwards. Below is a chronological summary of the key emails involving or mentioning Dershowitz based on analysis of the archive. There's only 4 bullet points. It says the following. March 2018, Epstein predicts Dershowitz's role in Trump administration. In an exchange with associate Richard Kahn, also Jewish, Epstein speculated that then-President Trump would hire Dershowitz as a lawyer, writing, quote, "Trump will probably hire Dershowitz, no joke," unquote. Kahn replied that Dershowitz, quote, "seems like he has been interviewing for the job for the last 2 months on Fox News," unquote. Referencing Dershowitz's frequent... Sorry. I can't. That's great. That's hilarious. Because he was always doing that. Again, he's clingy, Alan. He just doesn't go away. Dershowitz's frequent Fox News appearances defending Trump. Let's see. This reflects Epstein's interest in political connections, though no such hiring occurred. Except, of course, for the the impeachment trial, which, of course, was Allen's claim to fame outside of O.J. Simpson and, of course, Jeffrey Epstein. Quite a resume. Let's see. July 2018, mockery of Dershowitz's media fame. An Epstein associate, name redacted, emailed Epstein mocking Dershowitz's TV appearances, describing him as, quote, "in hog heaven," unquote, and, quote, "the Kim Kardashian of the legal scene, famous for being famous." That describes him to a T. I mean, they're all dirtbags. I'm not defending who Epstein's talking to, let alone Epstein by any stretch. I just find it funny that even they have a good compass when it comes to who Allen is. It says Epstein responded approvingly, saying, quote, "nicely put," unquote. This highlights Epstein's disdain for Dershowitz's public profile, contrasting with the past legal collaboration. 2 more here. There's December 15th, 2018, comparison to Trump, it says. Epstein emailed former Harvard President Lawrence, Summers again, criticizing Trump as borderline insane, quote unquote, and liking him to Dershowitz, who was, quote, "a few feet further from the border, but not by much," unquote. The email also touched on evoking Epstein's ties to Bill Clinton for strange reasons, underscoring Epstein's ongoing political maneuvering and personal jabs at Dershowitz. And then finally, it says spring of 2019, routine exchanges. Dershowitz and Epstein traded brief, matter-of-fact messages, mainly forwarding news articles. These occurred amid escalating scrutiny of Epstein's activities, but show no deep personal rapport. Dershowitz later told Axios in December of 2018 that he had, quote, "no recent social contact," unquote, with Epstein, but continued offering legal guidance, stating, quote, "You never stop being a person's lawyer," unquote. Well, you could have, but you didn't. Because you're needy, and you're clingy, and you apparently need a friend, and love influence, and love name notoriety, and a number of other things. Well, because Alan Dershowitz is an ass. Here's the conclusion and broader context. It says Epstein's emails portray Dershowitz as a useful but irritating ally. That's an accurate portrayal of his characteristics, I'd say. Valuable for his legal acumen in the 2007 plea deal, which granted Epstein leniency despite allegations of abusing dozens of underage girls, but mocked for his bombastic style and Trump loyalty. Dershowitz has denied any involvement in Epstein's crimes and settled a related defamation suit in 2022. Retired from Harvard in 2013 and was not Epstein's counsel during the 2019 federal charges, after which Epstein died by suicide in jail, so it says. It says the archive does not reveal new evidence of wrongdoing by Dershowitz, but amplifies tensions in their post-2007 dynamic, with Epstein reportedly, quote-unquote, despising him after the plea deal. No emails directly discuss Epstein's sex trafficking operations with Dershowitz, most focus on politics and media, unquote. Well, even so, I think that summarizes basically all of the characteristics of Alan Dershowitz in just a number of emails. And there you go. Thus ending the most recent installment and proof that yes, Alan Dershowitz is in fact an ass.
It's all in jest. It's all in jest. We laugh and pass. But we still say Alan Dershowitz is an ass.
Okay, geopolitically, I'm going to end with this before I move on to education. And this right here again is one of the things that's been brought up on the show before. Lots of people have brought this up in the past. And it's true, and it's a real thing, and it's being exposed now as being remarkably fraudulent. This has to do, of course, with convicts and individuals being arrested and then being falsely classified as being white, when in fact they are not, and it's obvious that they're not. This is from Uncorrelated, at uncorrelated_ on X, over at ThreadReader, and here's what it says. It says, quote, "White by default. The viral posts were right. We scraped 5.5 million criminal records, and 1.5 million mugshots from 39 states. 29% of Hispanics are being misclassified as white in official Department of Corrections databases, even when Hispanic is explicitly classified." It says everyone's seen these collages claiming that non-whites get classified as white in criminal databases. The problem? Anecdotal, cherry-picked, no way to verify. We had 1.5 million mugshots, names, and official racial classifications. Time to test it systematically. They said we trained a multinominal logistic regression on 18 features: deep face racial probabilities from mugshots, census name demographics, first and last name racial statistics. 92.76% accuracy distinguishing black, white, and Hispanic. The key insight, a sufficiently accurate linear model trained on biased data learns the true signal, not the bias. Systematic deviations between predictions and official labels indicate mislabeling by authorities, not model error. Here's what we found. 29% of predicted Hispanics were officially classified as white. Even at 95 to 100% model confidence, 22.4% of predicted Hispanics were still assigned white. Median confidence for those cases, 91.7%. Visual inspection confirmed it. These are people classified as white, quote unquote, in official records. Look at those names. And again, they have mugshots of them with their names and everything else, and it's obvious they're not white. It says, furthermore, PC mapping revealed that many whites, quote unquote, were in Hispanic variable zones, not the other way around. Measuring the Euclidean distance from the centroids, whites were just as distinguishable from Hispanics as blacks were from whites. To further confirm the validity of our method through visual inspection, we contrasted low and high confidence classifications. High confidence misclassifications, almost always were the predicted race instead of the assigned race. We corrected for misclassification. Hispanic criminal record rates increase 20 to 31%. White rates decrease 4 to 6%. Black rates decrease 1%. The lower bound being only high confidence reassignments, greater than 90% confidence. The upper bound assuming all predicted equals actual race. State-level analysis showed massive variation. Florida, for example, 60% plus of Hispanics were misclassified as white. Cubans tend to self-ID as white, they asked the question, but no correlation with political ideology. For the analysis and full replication, code data, GitHub, check out my blog post on it. White by default, systematic bias in U.S. criminal racial assignment, unquote. And it's being done on purpose is the point that they're also making, which they proved. Again, it's not error. It's not some classification whoopsie. They're not going, oh yes, Javier Rodriguez. Nice Van Dyke mustache, sir, and Fu Manchu, he's white. They're making the determination again on purpose. It's deliberate. They have the person's name. They have their geographic location. They're openly saying, yes, the likelihood of them actually being Hispanic is upwards of 90% plus, if not 100%, just based on that information alone, and they're still checking the white box. These are bad people in these positions, in the Department of Corrections, sheriff's offices, you name it. Again, they're the ones miscategorizing these people on purpose. So again, don't let anybody tell you that there's not a war against white people. There most certainly is. They're doing this again to falsify statistics based on crime. It's an ongoing process. It's a never-ending thing. And again, it's not new. That's something that's been going on for a number of years now. But it's nice, again, that finally people basically, again, put all of this together and said, yeah, it's impossible that people would get this wrong by accident or that there would be some kind of a glitch in their own reporting system. It's not human error either. It's human intentional action. So, yeah, I don't know what else to say. Fire the people, course correct, go back and redo the records appropriately, and then don't do it again. But, good luck with that. People are going to continue to do that because their feelings get in the way. Yes, Javier Rodriguez is white, and we're going to keep saying that he is, and Jamal Jackson is also white because it's obvious, and, I just hate white people, and checkbox, checkbox, checkbox. Got it. Okay, fine. I just don't know who they're fooling. Again, they clearly don't have a supervisor. There's clearly nobody looking over their shoulder like, that seems like you've made the same mistake lots of times. Interesting. Anyway, okay, moving on. Education stuff. Number of things here. A number of things. And it all ties in, of course, to the ongoing corruption and stupidity that is the entire business. I'm not going to get into the last Substack article that I put together, which of course had to do again with a rather famous study back in 2020 that clearly showed that staring at test scores has zero impact on academic achievement or learning or anything, and certainly raising test scores in some form or fashion. And they did so, of course, by comparing it to whether or not it has influence over manipulating a student's height. And as you would expect, it has no influence, so that pretty much renders that useless. The reason I put that together is because in the last board meeting of the Talawanda City School District in Oxford, Ohio here, their high school principal got up and gave a presentation, which was pathetic. And he openly says again, well, we're looking at the numbers and we're analyzing the data and when it comes to test scores and we're doing this and we're doing that. And I'm saying to myself, you're doing nothing. You're doing nothing. You're wasting your time. They don't know that the thing that they're doing has been disproven to be, or I should say, proven to be ineffective. And again, is useless and accomplishes nothing and benefits no one. And as I brought up on the show before again, that when it comes to so-called analyzing test scores, which there's no analysis whatsoever because you can't analyze a test score and be like, well, I'm going to teach Jimmy and Sally differently because they got C's, but I'm going to teach the rest of the class this way differently because they got A's. And the ones that got B's, well, I'll teach them a little differently, all in the same class. And so basically, I'll just teach slightly differently for all of them, and then all of a sudden that will have some impact on their future test score. It's the most asinine thing in the world, but that again was one of the approaches that unfortunately was suggested and or taken back when I taught. Again, in the early 2000s, these data analysis tools, and I'm using that term loosely, it's not data analysis, it's a garbage can of test scores, and that's all that they would take in. Of course, they become more advanced and more useless today, like taking in behavior analysis and attendance and extracurricular activities and whatever. But they had us actually looking at the test scores of students that we didn't even formally teach. And then this was brought up to them in typical Office Space movie fashion, so to speak. And we would say, as it turns out, the thing you're asking us to do is really stupid. Twofold. Number one, staring at test scores accomplishes nothing and doesn't do anything when it comes to our levels of instruction or their ability to learn anything, let alone improve a test score. And two, you're having us look at test scores of students that we don't even formally teach. These were specifically students that were in our homeroom classes, which again, we typically didn't have. You even had teachers being forced to look at test scores of students who were in the wrong grade. They weren't even in their grade. They had already, again, moved on to a separate grade. They just wanted teachers to just stare at something. And that was basically it. It was dumb because it's dumb. And again, it's been proven to be ineffective, but, leave it to the Talawanda City schools and most school districts around the nation, certainly, if not the world, because they do all of this. They get together, they waste professional development time on this. They waste committee time and whatever else on that as well. And they waste endless meetings and endless hours, days, weeks, months, years, just doing nothing. But that's the business in a nutshell. Now, regarding the local school district and what they actually did in the most recent board meeting, it was painful to watch. And by painful, I mean you're watching the dumbest humans on the face of the planet try to rationalize their participation in endless things. Let me give you a few examples. They openly admitted in the board meeting, certainly the superintendent, because sometimes you can't get him to shut up. He loves to try to talk his way in and out of things all of the time and rationalize participation or a lack of involvement or whatever. It's amazing. It doesn't help that he's flamboyant either. I mean, it's not exactly, a public presentation 101 tip, but either way, he openly starts discussing how they're having hiring problems and retention problems. And he even admits that the colleges and universities are graduating less and less people who want to be teachers. So what's his solution to all of this? His proposed solution is double dipping. Now, I want to bring up double dipping for those who may not be aware, but double dipping is a common practice, an unethical practice, highly unprofessional, and seen as so by endless people, certainly within the education business. For example, an individual will retire from a position, regardless of the position in the field of education. They will be receiving retirement, a full retirement. Again, regardless of the position, it could be superintendent, principal, assistant principal, counselor, school teacher, you name it, teacher's aide, whatever. And then they end up getting rehired by the same school district and the same school, or the same school, to basically do another job or a similar job for either a little less money or generally sometimes, depending on the case, the same amount of money. Simply because they view it as keeping a person that they are familiar with in-house, which of course eliminates the ability for anybody else to be hired for the position. Or they do that, of course, because they can't find anybody for the position, because again, chances are the environment is a crap environment and no one wants to work in it. That happens to be the case with the Talawanda City School District. If you get on any search engine and you type in their school district, you're not going to see complimentary news articles or YouTube videos about their school district. It's crime, corruption, endless types of illegality, incompetence, etc., etc. Over and over and over again, year after year after year. Again, people do their due diligence when they apply to a place. They look around. Have they been in the news lately? If so, what for? And they look at all of this information before they even, again, attempt to apply. But of course, some people are desperate and they have no choice. And they say, well, I've seen what they're doing online and I don't like it, but I got to pay the bills and here we go. And then they apply, and if they're qualified, they get hired. They even went so far as to bring this up, which was also equally as embarrassing. Certainly given previous presentations that I've given here on the show and publications that I've written. The school district I exposed, of course, before the election, the recent school board election, is that they are wasting upwards of $335,000. I think it was $334,000 to be precise, or somewhere around there. They're wasting that amount of money on a year-in, year-out basis on gift cards, on Kroger gift cards, Amazon gift cards, and other very questionable purchases in their purchase orders where they don't even specify necessarily what it is that they're buying. They just list the month in which it was purchased, the company that they purchased said thing from, and then the amount. And like I said in the Substack article, and I said here on the show, the amount in many cases is a whole number ending in a zero. There's no cents attached. That, again, directly implies that they're buying gift cards. So, is a school district a charitable organization? Are they stealing, or are they supposed to be a school? Because in the board meeting, Matt Wyatt, who is, I'm telling you, I don't think an IQ scale could possibly hold him. He's so low. He openly states and admits this, again, to his detriment, that he would rather spend $27,000 some odd dollars, which apparently is the amount of money that the school district pays, so they say, for background checks, that they would rather spend that money paying down student food debt and cafeteria debt that students have for food that they're purchasing that they don't have the money to purchase in the first place. Again, it makes my whole brain hurt, the level of stupidity, because the amount of money that they are wasting could very easily be spent on the school district doing background checks and paying for a background check. So he literally believes that paying students back for debt that they acquire in the cafeteria is worth it. and that is more important than the district conducting background checks on their own dime. And the sad part, too, again, was that this was brought up by board member Dawn King, and rightfully so, because she's the one who's been asking about this, and no one else has. And then they just have a discussion about it, and then they don't even vote on it. These people don't even understand Robert's Rules of Order, and they don't even follow it. Because then they just get all emotional, and they bark back and forth, and then it's on to the next agenda item. Again, when you make a motion to have a discussion about a particular thing that's on the agenda, you're supposed to arrive at a vote. You're supposed to vote for it. That's what's supposed to happen. But then, of course, later on in the meeting, Matt Wyatt says something like, by the way, I'm not a conspiracy theorist in XYZ. Elvis is not alive. We landed on the moon, and he says something else. I mean, he's a lunatic. He's an absolute lunatic. And when he said these three things, I started laughing out loud, and I went, well, that's funny. I don't think anybody's doubting that Elvis is dead. We never landed on the moon. That's easily provable. And the third thing, he was like half right about, whatever it was he said. So it was like, well, you're wrong. You're right, you're wrong, and you're half right. Again, these people, this is why they are in the business. They are the status quo. They represent the status quo, and what they don't understand is that is a wavelength of thought. It's a wavelength of thinking. Because there is no thinking. Because everybody's thinking alike, which means no one's thinking. Again, they still don't have a school psychologist. They openly admitted that. They openly admit, again, like I said earlier, that double dipping is the thing that they need to start doing. Finding other ways to get people certified to teach who aren't achieving college credit, basically. So there's, I'm not saying that you can't find effective teachers who don't have bachelor's degrees. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that, unfortunately, those individuals are more likely to be used and abused by the system because they're going to get paid a little bit more. And, and they're holding on to a position kind of through a backdoor channel. I'll end with this regarding the board meeting, because, again, it was highly entertaining from a stupidity standpoint. Because, again, if you want to watch the lowest common denominator at work, that right there is exactly a perfect meeting that anybody can tune into. But they, again, decided to change their YouTube channel also, and now they're putting all of their board presentations on a separate YouTube channel, well, because they're trying to be sneaky and they don't want other people to see their board meetings. So there's that. But with that aside, at the end, the board president, Rebecca Howard, openly says the following. I'm going to paraphrase it, but she says, I feel the need that we need to have a fact-checking segment of every board meeting where things are being said online and they're completely untrue, and we just need to fact-check them. And so here's what she decides to do. Not knowing, of course, that every single time any human uses the term fact-checking, they're lying. It is literally, again, the epitome of rationalization and a vernacular that falls right in line with rationalizing your own involvement in something you should have never gotten involved in. This all pertains back to the pre-election shenanigans by Matt Wyatt and others in town, apparently, who decided to contact the Oxford Free Press to tell them to make an open records request for security footage of one of the other guys running for the school board, Tom Heisler, who was in the hallway taking pictures of the gay bulletin boards that exist in the hallway just outside of an actual board meeting. None of that is against policy. None of that is against the law. But they tried to frame it again as if he was violating policy. He was somehow a danger to society. And then, of course, Matt Wyatt called him a peeping Tom, which is against the law. You can't accuse someone of a crime, certainly not of a sexual nature, when that's not what happened. He took pictures of gay bulletin boards with all the rainbow flag nonsense on it, and then gave it to a friend of his, and then they posted it on Facebook. And then, of course, the local whack jobs saw the pictures, and then they said, well, who took these? And then they immediately said, well, get the security footage. And then they did. But what Rebecca Howard, the board president, was claiming was that it was the Oxford Free Press who made the request. But that's not true. I have all of the emails that prove it. Endless people in the community have the emails that prove it. People like Molly Farler, Holly Hansel, Emily Greenberg, these local weirdos, and Holly Hansel's the communications director. She was in direct communication with the Oxford Free Press on how to obtain that security footage, because how would the Oxford Free Press know to even ask for that footage? They wouldn't. Unless they were in the Facebook group noticing that the pictures were there and that people were commenting on it and that people were saying, go get the security footage and let's smear him like he's a peeping Tom and putting gay students in danger and whatever else. It's just so weak and so dumb. And they lie so frequently, they don't remember their own lies. Matt Wyatt was directly involved in this also. He openly said he wanted the security footage too. He apparently met with the superintendent in the board office. It's petty nonsense, but I'm bringing it up because, again, they're pathological liars, and they lie all the time. And this leads me again to my most recent Substack article, which was a story that was sent to me by a listener of the show and a friend of mine, and they also have been a guest on the show as well. And they live in the Louisiana area. I'll just leave it at that. But they sent me this particular story that is so emblematic of, again, endless school systems, but also the Facebook banter that exists on Facebook when serious crimes have taken place. But instead of just not commenting on anything because of the serious nature of the illegality, they feel the need to actually defend it and defend the people wrapped up in it, which is amazing. And they look again for a hero in the middle of all of it, when in fact, there's no way that their so-called hero is innocent of anything. The title of it was Mind Virus Tribalism, the Locals Who Support Schools and Athletics No Matter the Crime. And then the subtitle, There Should Only Be One Response When Illegality is Uncovered, but Not So When It Comes to Sports Ball in American Schools. This has to do with the school district of Hamilton Christian School in Lake Charles, Louisiana. And the coach, the head coach of their basketball and football team, a coach Dexter Washington, including his son, and let me get the other people here, a Stacy Bargeman, if I'm saying that right, and former principal Morgan Doherty. They face charges for allegedly concealing information from school staff and law enforcement related to sexual assaults among students earlier in 2025. In a statement, the Hamilton Christian School Board emphasized that student safety and well-being remains their top priority. Well, of course it does. Because remember, excuse me, if it was their top priority, in reality, this would never happen. And the moment that anybody found out about this, everybody would come to the forefront and tell everybody that this illegality is happening. Now, because that's a lie, and school safety and student safety is no one's priority, certainly they don't want it to be a priority if it comes to their own detriment. What specifically did this have to do with? So my friend said, of course, as it would be typical in cases like this, the news outlets wouldn't divulge the specifics of any actual assault. But here's what they said, and it's a direct quote from them. They said, quote, they, senior football players, were jacking off into the faces of the freshman players. Supposedly someone reported it in September to the school, but nothing was done. Then it went to the sheriff's office. My guess is it was a parent of a player. They are having an undefeated season, unquote. If that doesn't describe Again, the business in a nutshell. Certainly when it comes to sports ball, I don't know what does. Well, we can't have any disruptions in the season. We're undefeated. Yes, sexual crimes are taking place among students and hazing practices and sexual assaults and all of this. It's just, it is what it is. But anyway, sports ball, ladies and gentlemen, that's what matters most. Not serious levels of illegality. It's the score on a scoreboard. And as I said earlier, it is truly the hive mind mentality that exists on social media, where people leap before looking. And I want to describe what this is before I read some of these posts. When you have individuals blindly support a machine, like the American schooling system, or a sport, or a person, or whatever, there are lots of names that this is, of course, associated with, or that define what that behavior is. And here are some of them. It's commonly referred to as in-group bias or tribalism, motivated reasoning, cognitive dissonance reduction, identity protective cognition, moral typecasting or loyalty bias, illusory truth effect plus confirmation bias, outgroup derogation, hero worship or halo effect, certainly in this particular case, which you'll hear about in just a second, bystander loyalty, diffusion of responsibility, and pathological allegiance. Now, all of those are relevant in this, every single one of them. And again, it seems like Facebook is the beehive in which all of these people seem to go to. And it blows me away because it's not singular to just this story. This happens in every town, city where school districts exist. People defend the school system to the bitter end. I mean, hell, they tax themselves, do they not? They tax themselves into poverty and into oblivion to support these particular school districts. Why on earth would they not support it if a sexual assault occurs? Even when they have no evidence leaning one way or another, they just feel the need to blindly support them. Again, blind allegiance. Here's the local news outlet Facebook post first, and then some commentary from some local citizens. This is KPLC7 News, and they said the following. During the investigation, detectives discovered multiple sexual assaults occurred between students from March to September of this year. Detectives say that Doherty, who was principal, and Washington, who was coach, knew about the assaults and tried to hide the information from both school staff and law enforcement. Bargeman, an employee at the school, if I'm saying their name right, don't care, sent threatening messages to other school personnel in reference to the investigation deputies allege. Yep. Doherty and Bargeman were booked with failure to report certain felonies and obstruction of justice. Their bonds are set at $1.15 million. Bargeman was booked with cyberstalking, and her bond is $7,500. Quote, this case took longer than usual to investigate due to the complexity of the case and the sheer number of individuals we needed to interview, stated the, I'm going to get this wrong, Calcaso, if I'm saying that right, probably not, Sheriff Stitch Gulleroy. Could be getting his name wrong too. Quote, we wanted to make sure this investigation was thorough, just like any other, and that all available evidence was collected. There has been a lot of rumor and hearsay about what actually occurred, and we are still analyzing evidence when it comes to this case. The individuals who were arrested today were arrested due to evidence recovered revealing from day one that they were trying to impede and cover up facts during our investigation. It says several sources stated that Coach Dexter Washington has resigned from his coaching duties at Hamilton Christian Academy. There's an ongoing investigation going on in reference to the athletic department. The very first comment now from a local citizen, apparently from a Monica R. Abram master's in education. She decided to put her MED after her name. And she simply said, quote, "Chin up, coach," unquote. There you go. Chin up. Your son was involved in covering up serious hazing and illegality of a sexual nature, but chin up. Next person said, "God will protect coach and keep him covered from any harm and danger. Trouble don't last always. Standing with coach." Honestly. Another person said, "A person who gave his all to a school and most definitely to the kids. I've known Dexter all my life and I'm standing tall 100% behind him. Hold your head up and chest out, coach. God got you." These people can't speak, they can't write, and they're all women. No offense, it's just the way it is. Here we go. Alakikan Shinque Starland. She said, quote, "Coach, be strong and courageous. He will not leave or forsake you. Cross emoji praying hands," unquote. And then here's one. And this is, this again, when it comes to, sorry, when it comes to qualitative reasoning and analysis, here's how you can tell a brainwashed person. They say the same thing over and over again, regardless of their geographic location, and it's a phrase or a saying that they didn't come up with themselves. But they use it in their own vernacular on a constant basis, not knowing that the thing that they're saying they never created. And it's when someone says the phrase, "stop reaching," "quit reaching," or "you all are reaching." I've seen that, and I'm not even on Facebook. I've seen that endless times in endless online posts, but specifically within Facebook screenshots of people saying, "You need to stop reaching." What are you talking about? Reaching for what? The only people reaching are the people defending this with no evidence. Here's a Charlene Bowman White. Black gal says the following: y'all reaching, because being a stern coach doesn't make it hazing. Coach Dexter coaching capabilities shows in his school record. Stats don't lie. It's just hard for y'all to see a black educated man winning. Hamilton isn't about to have no one at that school. Jesus. The kids, these people, they don't even proofread. They type how they speak, and they can't speak English. The kids respect this man, but y'all rather have someone that these kids don't respect. It's just sad that now that Coach Washington has resigned, the kids have to suffer, unquote. Again, we're talking like sub 70 IQ here. It's amazing. And they don't even think about it. They're just like, "Oh, I'm going to support him and I'm going to write how I talk and I'm not going to proofread anything. And if I say it, then people will like it." There's people laughing at her, responding. I mean, my God. Another person says they're going to sit this one out. Another person says, "Do you mean the kids suffered from the abuse, correct? No one's career comes over that. I repeat, no one's." And then she responded, this Charlene Bowman White, and said, "Quit reaching." She doesn't even know what she's saying. Here's another one. A person said, "What amazes me the most are the comments. It's like they have already convicted everyone involved. Where was the same energy or Christianity for the presidential election? Hypocrisy at its finest. A Delvin Redo." Well, again, Delvin is in that same IQ category as the previous person. Another person again responded, "Class move, coach. Those kids are going to miss a great leader." Again, Sports ball or jacking off in people's faces in a locker room or wherever they're doing it? Tying people down, I assume? Which is it? Put that on the old scale and weigh those. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. I pray what's being said isn't true, but if it is, no way they should take the field tonight. You don't have to pray that it's not true. Just don't say anything. It already happened. It's already over. 3 people were arrested. What more evidence do you need beyond the specificity of the actual crime itself? Another person says, "You're in my thoughts and prayers." Regarding Coach Dexter, "He was great for the school and students. Wish you luck." These people are disgusting. Again, and it's not all of them, but it's certainly plenty. It's plenty, and it's not even divided by race. You have whites who are supporting the coach. You have blacks who are supporting the coach and the school and the team, and those boys didn't do nothing wrong. And then you also have blacks who are both, again, not supporting the behavior and supporting the behavior. So it's not a race thing. It's just, again, it's low IQ, regardless of race. But they see something like this and they immediately, again, rely on the smallest part of the brain, which is emotion, rather than looking at the whole situation and saying, you know what? I don't know the specifics of this. I'm not going to say anything. Instead, again, like moths to the flame, they run right into it. It's certainly a great deal of them, including the individuals that pump the brakes. And they're like, well, I can see my opinion is about to come out, so I just won't speak on the issue. Why even type that? Why would you even expose yourself as being non-committal? Just don't say anything. This is so, my God. This is so insidious, ladies and gentlemen, because these people sit on juries. I mean, this right here is emblematic also, and it's a nice little caption of the judicial system. This is it in a nutshell also. It's astounding. These people, again, sit on juries. They make decisions about whether or not crimes have been committed. They let people go because they're wrapped up emotionally. Well, there's no way, or I don't want to see another black man go to jail, or they're a white person, so off with their head, or whatever rationalization from an emotional or political standpoint that they bring up. Another person here said, a white individual said, Penn State cover-up, but at Hamilton Christian. See, here's the thing. This is every school district. Every school district engages in cover-ups of illegality. Again, regardless of the seriousness of the illegality. It's their thing. It's what they do. It's their policy. I'm going to wrap that up, but I'm going to wrap it up by saying this, which is basically, again, what I say at the end of the article. This is exactly why the abused and abused minors and even the parents and family members of abused minors don't stand a chance when it comes to this social machine. A story like this hits the airwaves, and then all of a sudden, all the locals come out of the cracks, and the lowest of the IQ start defending the environment and the people who are implicated in serious illegality. All because of something that does not matter, which is sports ball. To defend that. By the way, it's clearly a predominantly black school with black employees. One can make that assumption based on just pictures alone. Why the blind allegiance? Who does that help? It doesn't help any victim. It's just a useless, over-emotional response to something when the individual has zero evidence of the actual thing for which they're responding to, let alone any experience in it either. They must not know that hazing is a thing. They must not know that when you have an environment of hazing, quote unquote, and I use that term loosely because in this particular case, allegedly, it's serious sexual assault that would require, you would think, restraint on the part of at least some of the participants. And then, of course, what happens, and then that's that. But it's not, I mean, hazing is a blanket term. It is a sexual crime, a sexual assault, and even that's surprising for some of the people commenting. Sexual assault? Well, I don't know, it's just hazing, isn't it? No, it's illegal. It's illegal. But this again, this is the behavior of human beings, leaping before looking, no thinking whatsoever. If I say something online, then I'm just going to get that dopamine hit, and somebody's going to agree with me or disagree. And if they disagree, then I'll make fun of them or do whatever. But if they agree with me, then I'll start a dialogue with them that's a little more productive. Joke's on everybody. They're all wrong because they don't know all of the facts, because they didn't investigate anything. They're not involved in the actual investigation. They haven't read any documentation. They haven't done any interviews. Again, it's like a child who walks into the middle of a movie and wants to know what's going on or thinks that they already know what's going on. It's incredible. And it's, again, a serious behavior lapse that does exist in endless places. And it's very, very common, and it's very, very destructive. So again, when anybody in a community says that the safety and security of students is their number one concern, it isn't. Clearly not when it comes to community outreach or backlash or conversations that take place about illegality. They would go so far as to even blame the minors for making it up, lying, or exaggerating. It's sad and pathetic, but it happens all of the time. Okay. Speaking of unhinged educators, there was this on Town Hall from a few days ago. Get a load of this. It was titled, "Here's the Scary Reason Authorities Arrested a Virginia Assistant Principal and His Brother." The assistant principal, a John Bennett of a Kempsville high school in Virginia Beach, and his brother Mark were arrested at the Norfolk airport this week. Authorities allege that the Bennett brothers were heading to Las Vegas to meet with, quote, like-minded people about attacking ICE agents. It says an off-duty officer with the Norfolk Police Department claimed he overheard the brothers 4 days earlier discussing, quote, how ICE agents are kidnapping individuals and that they need to do something about it, unquote, while dining at a restaurant in Virginia Beach, according to a criminal complaint obtained by the outlet. Mark Bennett allegedly told his brother about his intentions to fly to Las Vegas to meet with like-minded people to formulate enforcement ideas and plans, unquote, according to the complaint. The brother then allegedly confessed that he had recently purchased an assault rifle, specifically, quote, because it utilizes the explosive rounds that are needed to penetrate the vests worn by ICE agents, according to the complaint. John Bennett, an assistant principal at Kempsville High School in Virginia Beach, piped up and said he wanted to tag along on the trip to Vegas and, quote, go hunting, unquote, as alleged in the complaint. The complaint states that Mark Bennett bought a ticket to fly to Sin City on Wednesday. It's unclear if his brother ever purchased one as well. Here's the news outlet breakdown on this story in 3, 2, 1.
Two brothers have been arrested, charged with threatening to shoot police and ICE agents, and one of them is an assistant principal at Kempsville High School. Yesterday, Beach police arrested 54-year-old John Bennett. School officials say he's currently on leave from his position there. The other suspect is 59-year-old Mark Bennett. Court documents reveal several disturbing details about this investigation. So let's send it over to 10 on Your Side's Ethan Krause, who joins us live outside of that school. Ethan.
Yeah, Aisha, good afternoon. And you said it, the court documents do reveal details leading to the arrest of Kempsville High School Assistant Principal John Bennett. Now, according to the Virginia Beach Police Department, John Bennett and his brother Mark were both arrested on November 16th after police received information that the brothers threatened to commit acts of violence against local police and ICE agents. Court documents reveal that the brothers were overheard talking at a restaurant where Mark Bennett mentioned how he had an assault rifle with the ability to utilize explosive rounds that could penetrate protective vests. He also mentioned flying to Las Vegas to meet with like-minded people and how he would return with, quote, enforcement ideas and plans. The documents went on to state that John Bennett added statements of support and enthusiasm for the suggested violence and also expressed interest in joining his brother on the trip to Vegas. Now, both brothers were arrested and charged with conspiracy to commit malicious wounding.
It cuts off there. So, yeah. The safety and security of students and anybody else, law enforcement, is our number one concern, says the assistant principal who wants to buy armor-piercing bullets and, tag along with his brother as his brother shoots ICE agents. I think that's a perfect example of Trump derangement syndrome, don't you? Again, the profession is filled with these kinds of nut jobs. It just is. It's not all of them, but it's certainly the vast majority. There was also this particular story here. This, again, was heartbreaking. And I saw the video, and it's terrible. I mean, it's a full-blown beating. But this was from earlier in the week. This is from Breitbart here. It was titled, Teacher of the Year, quote-unquote, arrested for allegedly beating son 22 times with a belt. They arrested a decorated teacher in Alabama this week after her son posted a video online that appears to show her beating his 12-year-old brother at least 22 times with a belt. Video released online apparently shows the teacher identified as 44-year-old Randy Nicole Staples of Cottage Hill Christian Academy, belting her 12-year-old son repeatedly before pulling him by his hair when he allegedly failed to complete his chores. Her other son captured the moment on video and released it online, presumably as a cry for help. Again, it's an awful video, and he's wailing at the top of his lungs. Again, you go back to the hive mind tribalism nonsense. I posted this online, and a person on Gab actually responded to me and said something like, well, how do you know that kid didn't have it coming? How do you know that kid isn't some kind of a jerk or isn't doing what he's told? Are you kidding me? Human beings like this, like the mother/teacher who beats the ever-living snot out of her own child with a weapon, that alone is not something, again, that is, you're not born to do that. And the child, doesn't matter if the child is a jerk or not. You're not born that way. You're made into this. And in this teacher's case, this is, of course, happened to her. And she's witnessed this, a beating with a belt, which is why she's doing it to her son. Again, smallest part of the brain, over-emotional, and then, again, gets a weapon in her hand and goes to town. So, she's been arrested. The children are with others. And she'll be out of a job. And she'll never work ever again. And that's the end of that. So, yeah. Good riddance to bad rubbish, but imagine what she was doing in a classroom setting when there aren't cameras and when no one is filming her. How is she addressing minors within her working environment? We could take a guess. Again, if people had any clue as to what American school teachers and administrators did in their spare time, I'm telling you, they would have serious doubts about whether or not their own minors and their own children, rather, need to be around them. It is astounding. But, yeah, not unusual. It's almost par for the course. Okay, I'm going to end with this real quickly. I saw a clip of Kristi Noem, the head of the Department of Homeland Security, and she was speaking with TSA agents, and she was basically saying that the Department of Homeland Security is going to be giving airports $1 billion in upgraded technology and security so that they can, of course, do their jobs better and make everybody safe and make the airways safe and make, again, airports more safe. I don't know what that entails, but we can take a few guesses. And again, unfortunately, a lot of this goes back to the 9/11 hoax. That entire thing was used, again, to usher in, of course, a variety of wars, endless death, and the satanic ritual that it was. But it was designed to usher in, of course, the Patriot Act and the creation of the TSA. Now, there were no planes on 9/11, and there were certainly, of course, no hijacked planes either, nor have there been hijacked planes since. So you didn't have hijacked planes really ever before 9/11, not on 9/11, and not after 9/11. But it's not about, again, what's true and what's not. It's about scaring people and then getting them to accept more security and more surveillance, which is what it really is, to basically, again, strip them of their freedoms. Again, the number of people that individuals in airports have to pass by, the number of employees, rather, who check their documentation, check their bags, check their person, and see if they're holding something that they should not be holding. Again, planes, again, haven't been hijacked at all. So why the need for $1 billion worth of so-called security? And is that security really just going to ramp up more of the wireless body area network and digital surveillance, certainly facial recognition, what have you? Again, is it being used as a deterrent against real illegality, or is it being used, again, to sort of tighten society and put a stranglehold on people's movements in one direction or another? I'm not sure. Again, is there a real viable threat of some kind, and they're simply getting out in front of this by saying we're going to invest more? Again, is it manpower? I think it would be highly unlikely it would just be new employees. It seems like it would be, again, more surveillance technology. And is that a good thing? I mean, I don't fly. I haven't been to an airport since 2019. But again, I just think it's odd. So it's possible they're getting ahead of something because they have some intel on a particular event of some sort, but it just seems more, again, like the wireless body area network and digital surveillance to some extent. So I'm not a fan of it, but I understand the business of safety and security and all of that, but I think we already have that, do we not? Do we need $1 billion more into that? Can you spend $1 billion another way? I think you can. Again, I don't claim to have all the ins and outs of it, but at face value, it just seems a bit strange. So I'll leave it at that. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll catch you on Wednesday for the last episode of the week. Talk to you then. Peace. Thank you for listening to American Education FM. Make sure and check out AmericanEducationFM.com for more information. Take care and God bless.